Welcome to the Grief Ladies, the practical guide to what comes next. I'm Kelly Daugherty.
And I'm Karyn Arnold, and we are two grief professionals with over 50 years of combined experience. We're here to validate, educate, and give you tangible tools you can actually use.
Each episode motivates you to take action and reminds you it's okay to want to feel better. This is the Grief Ladies, a guide to what comes next. Hi, and welcome back to Grief Ladies. We're happy today to be welcoming Cori Myka to our show. I'm here with Karyn as well. And today we're going to be talking about the next letter in our framework, which is E for evolving. And so evolving kind of falls, different things fall under that: complex emotions, self-esteem, things like that. So we're pretty excited today to have Cori with us. And so welcome, Cori. And we're going to go
Thanks.
ahead.
I'm glad to be here.
Oh, great. And so I'll just go ahead and read her bio. So Cori Myka is the founder of Calm Within Adult Swim, with over 25 years of experience in adult swim education. She specializes in helping adults overcome their fear of water through a unique blend of mental and physical training techniques. She teaches clients to identify their inner saboteurs, the critical voices that increase shame or pressure, and replace them with the sage voice, which offers curiosity, empathy, and calm action. Her mission is to empower individuals to become confident swimmers and embrace personal growth by working with students and certifying instructors. So welcome. So Cori, I have to be honest, I probably should be one of your clients because I do not know how to swim.
I didn't know that.
We had a 4-foot pool in our backyard. Exactly. I wish me and my sister
of adults don't know how to swim.
Exactly. So I would, that's something that I would love to learn how to do. I can't float. I can't do any of it. So, but welcome. Thank you so much for being here, and we're excited to talk with you.
Yeah, well, I think what's neat about it is because we do have a lot of, people who are coming on talking specifically about grief, but I think it's really neat when we can take something that's actually a little bit different and see how it translates and kind of utilize some of the same tools, maybe because it also reminds people that they have other tools. Even if they feel like they're in a new situation, there's things that they've been doing to help themselves through difficult times. And what I like about it, because we are speaking to grieving people today, and I think certainly like Kelly feels uncomfortable in the water, which I've just learned this about you, Kelly. So new information. But they feel uncomfortable in a lot of situations in their life. There's a lot of fear, that comes with being a grieving person. And I have to imagine that that's a big part of when someone is struggling, to be learning to swim, maybe even as an adult. So how do you help people deal with some of the fear that they have?
Yeah, well, it's fear. And also, as I hear you talk about the grieving person and the similarity to a new swimmer, it's a sense of overwhelm, right? That there is people who are learning to swim as adults for the first time, going into the water. It's a whole new world. And there's this anticipation of, what I haven't gotten right in the past, what might go wrong in the future. And we're just a sense of overwhelm of all of the emotions and feelings and desires to be perfect and good and to show up in a certain way, right? We move through the world in this way. And so to be able to, what we're really teaching people, and that I think is also likely useful for a grieving person, is how to slow that down, right? And how to create a bit of space from this sense of fear and overwhelm. So that you can then take whatever step forward. In the case of, in the learn to swim process, it's even this very simple question, standing next to the pool: do I want to get in? Do I want to take that next step? Right. And it may seem sort of obvious and like, well, I'm standing here in a swimming suit. I paid a lot of money, right? Like all the things in the environment say I should do this next thing, which would be stepping into the pool. But learning how to be able to slow down and to pause and to really check in and create enough space then to see, well, hang on, just because I'm standing here, just because I'm at this precipice, doesn't mean I actually have to do it. I can take a moment and then decide from that tender part of myself, take care of myself to say, yes, I do want to step in, or no, I don't. And that's okay, right? I get to have my back either way. I get to make a loving decision and kind of clear some of that overwhelm away.
Yeah, that's so interesting. Well, and I'm glad that you mentioned the idea of overwhelm because it is a huge part of it. There's so much that you're trying to process all at the same time, just as I imagine the people that you're working with. Maybe you can walk us through a little bit some of the steps. As you said, it seems to start just by standing by the pool and making that decision. Where else do people go from there when they're going through this process?
Yeah. So, I mean, what we're really looking for in helping people craft is a sense of internal trust and safety. So, when we're at this moment of standing next to the pool and the brain is going in the overwhelm, like all the things I should do or could do or want to do or have gotten wrong, at the end of it is sort of this sense of, am I safe? Am I emotionally and physically safe? And so this is what we're asking people to take a moment, to take a breath, and to feel themselves in this current space. And for swimming, it's even as simple as saying, can I breathe? Because that's really the biggest fear in terms of in the water is I'm going to lose my access to air. And that means I'm not safe. And so taking a moment to take a breath, to feel the breath, to feel the safety and the okayness of this exact moment, right? In this exact moment, I'm okay. And this kind of grounding mechanism can slow us down then to be able to say, okay, now the choice is, do I want to step into the pool? Can I stay with myself? Can I stay grounded in myself for that step? And if it's yes, then we can step in. If it's no, then we're not ready yet. That means we need a little something. We have a question, we have a concern, we have a worry, we have something that needs to be addressed. And so the no can open us up to that place of what we could address instead of just jumping into the next thing and pushing ourselves forward.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love that, and I think this is like there's so many analogies
I was
here
going to
with
say it's like metaphors and just
there really is. It
yeah.
is like a perfect example of like grief. And so much what I talk with my clients about, right, is that mindfulness, being here in the present moment and asking yourself, what's wrong right now, right? Yes, grief can feel so overwhelming. And right now it feels like it's taking up everything in our life. But sometimes in this very moment, everything's okay. And I think when we're grieving, we don't always give ourselves that space to even acknowledge that there are some moments where it is maybe okay. And that's not a bad thing, right? And it's about also I love the fact like what really this whole podcast is based on is these actionable steps. And you're saying it's these little steps that we need to take and I love that. I think that's exactly what it is. Okay, assess, see where you're at, take it, okay, do I want to take this next step or not?
Are you ready to take the next step on your grief journey with real tools and compassionate guidance? The Grief Ladies are launching a brand new workshop series based on their signature grief G.R.I.E.F framework. 5 trail markers to help you find your footing after your loss: grounding, rebuilding, interacting, evolving, and finding. Each workshop focuses on one trail marker, guiding you through practical steps to move from surviving to living again, all in a space that's honest, supportive, and real. Led by grief experts Daugherty and Karyn Arnold, these workshops combine decades of experience with tools you can start using today. Visit griefladies.com to explore the upcoming workshops because you don't have to climb this mountain alone.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the idea of, as you said, sort of that metaphor and what this could really equate to trying to take the next step for things is really difficult, but happening in small ways. I think I talk to people a lot about, kind of going back and forth between thinking about things that have happened in the past, worrying about the future, and sometimes doing that and ignoring that right now you're okay. And we do really need to be reminded of that over and over. I mean, yes, all these terrible things have happened. There's so much that you're adjusting to, but in terms of safety, which I think is an important word, it has one meaning in terms of swimming, but in life, it's that idea of being just even safe in a moment, that I can take some sort of solace in that. We're trying to find something that we can hold on to. So, Cori, in the bio that Kelly had read, you had mentioned the idea of the inner saboteur, and we see people struggling with things like motivation, guilt. There are parts of this process that emotionally we are kind of blocked and things that we are holding on to. Um, how would this kind of translate this idea of being our own saboteur, both in the work you do and then possibly for those who are grieving?
Yeah. So, I mean, we always have all these voices that play lots of different things in our brain, and I think one of the important things for us to do in life is to notice this part of me is actually just working to somehow protect me, right?
Sure.
That it can even be when we have this voice that I didn't, I'd been thinking about in my world, I've been thinking about learning to swim all these years and we went on all these vacations and I never got to do it and I always had to miss out. Yeah. So we can have this narrative that will play over and over of guilt or um that doesn't actually help us take the step forward. It helps us really to kind of stay the same. And when we can be kind to that saboteur voice and to know that that saboteur voice is playing this role to sort of protect us and hold us the same and hold us in one place and to be curious with it and to give us some of that third person view to it, to not say this isn't me, I am not my lack of motivation, or I am not the person who uh, doesn't participate or something like that. That is just a part. That is something that happened or something that occurred. And I can have kind curiosity with myself around this instead of making that the narrative of who I am always going forward, right? Then we just end up perpetuating it in that way. So having a lot of loving kindness for the ways that our saboteur voice shows up, so that it doesn't have to be the controlling body,
Mm,
but it's trying to help us in some way, but it's not always helpful.
yeah. Yeah, I think it's just being mindful of our self-talk and, how often we are not giving ourselves grace or compassion or patience, all the things that are really important. And we were just talking about this before, the idea in terms of what we do have control over, what are some of the places that we can exert our energy, and trying to put it in that mindset, I think is so much more helpful. I think it's normal for a person who's grieving to feel sort of defeatist, and to feel that like life hasn't been working out and that, to not trust that things can be okay. So this is a real big shift, that we want to put into practice. But I find the repetition of it is also what makes a difference. Do you think that you see that with some of the work that you do as well in terms of like practice, repetition, patience, making a difference for people?
Absolutely. I mean, you need to have so much more of a positive experience to a negative experience, right? To outweigh it. The brain is hardwired towards the negative, towards the danger, right?
Mm,
And it's useful in life for it to be kind of more hardwired in that way. You need to remember, as they talk about, like you need to remember the the fruit that gave you a tummy ache and made you throw up more than you need to remember the fruit that was yummy and delicious and felt good, right? Just from a biological standpoint. So, yeah, being intentional about our practice and repetition and kind with ourselves again when we aren't in the practice and the repetition of talking to ourselves or opening ourselves up to neutral or positive ways of being, that even just taking that moment of celebrating that moment when we recognize, oh, this is the saboteur voice speaking. And that is, we want to reward ourselves even for that, right? Like, I noticed it. Versus we could very quickly go into, I shouldn't be doing that, right? That, yeah. So just that small little practice of starting to even recognize the way we're speaking to ourselves is a huge goal, huge win, and a
Yeah.
huge piece of that practice and repetition of kindness for ourselves.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, awareness is key, right? And when you can catch yourself, I always say, like, people are like, when we talk about, I especially talk a lot about mindfulness, and they're like, well, I don't know about that. And I'm like, I really think the first step is to be aware of how mindless you actually are, right? Or to
Mhm.
catch yourself in some of that negative thinking. And once you see it, then you keep seeing it more, and then you can start making some shifts and start doing things a little differently. But until you have that awareness, I mean, we have, what do they say, like 70 to 90,000 thoughts every single day, and how many of them are negative, right? And so that awareness that it takes a little work, but it can be life changing.
For sure. Yeah. I always love with my swim students, there are times where they're underwater and they're doing something and they come up and they're already talking to me, telling me what they did wrong, what didn't go right with that particular time and activity. And I'm like, okay, hang on. Let's just notice you weren't even there for the whole activity because you were already in a conversation, in a criticism of it before you even got your face back out of the water, before you finished the activity. I don't care how you did the activity. Let's just see if we can be present to it through the thing and let yourself get all the way through to taking your face back out of the water and taking a breath, and then we can be interested and curious about how it went. So they're always surprised of like, "Oh, right, yes." Like, in my head and not even in what I was trying to play with. Yeah.
So I'm curious, Corey, because obviously, well, not obviously, but under our framework, this we talk about self esteem. I think this is one of Karen's favorite topics, right?
Yes.
So I'm curious, with the clients that you work with, from that moment of them standing on the side of the pool, even making that decision whether that they want to go in or not, to the moment where maybe they graduate and they've been successful. Like, what do you notice happens with their self-esteem in that?
Well, it's a huge change, and uh, because really the what we're doing is not just teaching somebody what to do with their arms and their legs, but how to build trust and internal safety with themselves. And so uh, we're not actually looking to be the experts because we're not the experts in each individual person's body and mind, right? So it's really about them being able to learn to tap into themselves. And that is so hugely empowering and uplifting. And people can let go of having to get their self esteem from the award of being the fastest person or something like that, some external um, measure of it. That it really, they get to tap into this internal measure of, oh my gosh, I went in the water and put my face in the water, and it was so interesting and curious. And I came up and breathed when I wanted to breathe, and I didn't get water in my like this very childlike delight in simple, simple things. um, this is just so expansive for people in their internal growth and internal narrative. And then, you know, the the external reward of being able to swim a certain distance or do a particular activity, that becomes less important. It becomes a natural outcome of this internal shift,
Mhm.
which is spills over then right to any other area of your life.
Yeah, and I think I see this happen so much with the widows that I work with, because here they are, and
Mm,
they have to take on these new roles and these responsibilities that they never thought they would have to do. And then when they do, I have one, she loves to celebrate like her successes. Like I jump started the lawnmower today, like, and how proud she was. And she shared that in group and all. And then, but like now it's just become kind of part of her. And it's, you can see like she carries herself differently now because she's like realized like, I can do these things. And like, and just, how much that's helped her self-esteem, I think, and grow as a person, even, while still honoring and carrying her grief.
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah.
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 Yeah, I think it really it's I think it's really important, like you said, with the self-esteem and the things that that are possible. I think people do surprise themselves in a lot of different settings. The things that we didn't think we could do, the things that we're capable of. I mean, people talk about the idea of resilience, and that's a lot of, I think, some of the positive that we get to see in terms of growth that people are capable of. Every once in a while, I shouldn't even say, I think it happens, unfortunately, a little too often. I do find that when people are achieving these big milestones, they are also prone to diminish it when they're doing something that they feel like, oh, other people already know how to do this. Or, do you find that? Is that anything that you feel like people need to overcome in terms of kind of keeping them celebrating and feeling good about it?
For sure. I mean, one of the things that we do in class is at the end of every session, we do go around and see what do people want to get a standing ovation for? What do people want to celebrate of how they felt in the water that day? And a big part of the reason is because they're going to go home or back to wherever and tell somebody about what they did. And particularly if they tell somebody who learned to swim as a child or has, quite a bit of swimming experience, they're not going to get it. And they're gonna say, "Well, but did you do this?" And, "Oh, I can't wait," because they're gonna be sharing their experiences and memories and thinking, "Oh, when you can do the things that I know how to do, then you'll feel wonderful like I do." Um, and so this can kind of diminish the person who had this new and wonderful thing. Um, and so, yeah, we make sure as part of our process is, yeah, every small milestone is not small really at all. It's essential, right? It's these grounding essential pieces. Um, yeah, going at,
Yeah.
talk about the starting the lawnmower or whatever, like just even going out and being willing to, like, pull the thing out and take a look at it and put it away. Okay, that's enough. Right? Like, that's the step. That's the step, and it's worth celebrating because if you don't take that starting step, there can't be step number 2. So, yeah, we
Yeah.
wanna celebrate those things for sure.
Yeah, and I think we have to help people in your work, in our work, in validating that for people, to help them understand that the things that seem so small, because again, that's what happens. Somebody be like, "Oh my gosh, I never believe," and I know it's still, like, "Oh, I drove, to visit my sister, and she lives 2 hours away," and like, "Oh, I know it's no big deal. People drive all the time." It's like it's a big deal for you because that's what your husband used to always do, and now you're the one doing it. Um, so we're trying to do that to kind of get them to validate that because they're not going to necessarily find a lot of applause elsewhere.
Mhm.
But ultimately, we want them to be able to validate it for themselves so that regardless of what other people understand, they know this is a really big accomplishment and it's really something to honor because we build on those steps. And if we are trying to get ourselves back to our self-esteem having, you know, some level of goodness to it that we want to honor every step that we're taking. So it's so interesting how there's so many correlations here.
Yeah.
I feel like, yeah,
Well, I think it's so unfair that we actually do look at people who've accomplished something in the world. And, we very often because we look at the end result, right? And we really have no idea all of the steps that it took for somebody to get to there, right? We don't know the micro steps. You might know some of the big fat chunks of steps. They got a degree in something. They got, a kind of a resume of steps. But there's all these tiny physical and energetic steps that make up these micro steps that are vitally important. And when we look at other people, what other people are doing, or even what our past selves did, we miss seeing those tiny steps and how important they are.
If you've connected with our grief framework on the podcast, you'll find even more support inside our private, free Facebook community. Each week, we'll walk through grounding, rebuilding, interacting, evolving, and finding with prompts and practical tools you can use right away. It's a place to connect with others who are on their own trail through grief. Search the Grief Ladies community on Facebook and join us. Yeah, definitely. And that's, and with grief, we're going to take steps forward and we're going to go backwards and then forwards and all around, but it is. And I think that this is a perfect segue into our next section, which is about celebrating their life, and something I'm very passionate about, and helping grieving individuals find ways to honor their loved one, honor that connection they shared with them. How do they continue that bond? And so, Cori, I'm curious, if we haven't really asked you about your personal grief experience, but if there's any ways that you honor and celebrate your loved ones.
Well, I think the biggest way, and the person I'm thinking about in particular, uh, is to tell the stories, is to keep continuing to tell stories and to keep um, them alive in the day to day. And this is person I'm thinking of at this moment is it was my son's best friend's mom who died, who also was my very, very dear friend. And so, as he has grown up, he was 7, at the time. And as these kids have grown up, we just constantly, keep telling the stories of his mother, of my friend, um, to keep her alive and remembered, and to normalize she is a part of our experience. He would not be here, we would not all be in relationship to each other if it wasn't for her and her life. And so we really yeah, he's really taught me, and she has really taught me that piece of, because as a 7-year-old, I didn't want him to not know his mother, right? So that was really my job, I've seen, to help him know his mother, and let him talk about her, and, as he grew up and developmentally grows up. So that continuing to just feel free to tell the stories, is a huge piece for me.
Cori, I just want to thank you for saying that and for doing that, because as somebody who my mom died when I was 14, and I worked with a ton of grieving kids, that doesn't always happen.
Hmm.
So thank you for keeping her stories alive for him and for continuing to share those, because I remember I was at a funeral a couple years ago, and somebody shared a story about my mom, and 30 years later, and it was so nice. It meant so much to me to be able to hear a story about my mom that I hadn't heard
Mhm.
before. So
Yeah.
thank you for doing that for him.
Mhm.
Yeah. Well, and we're just trying to normalize the discussions in general, just kind of putting it out there and know that we're all loving someone, missing someone, and trying to make it a safe space for people to talk about grief. And I think that's a lot of what, Kelly and I certainly try to do, and you're doing in her honor as well, which is great. So, Cori, as we had mentioned to you before, we do like to have like a takeaway, for anybody that is listening to the podcast. And I think Kelly and I have probably already thought of so many things, that would be really beneficial for people. A couple of things that stuck out to me, as you're explaining your process and what the work you do, helping people to slow it down, to take it in steps, to giving themselves that time, to breathe before they move on to the next thing. So that's one thing that I know for sure I think could be really helpful for someone to try. Anything else that you would like to suggest that people start with today in terms of taking a step in their grieving?
Yeah, absolutely. I think, we really talked about that standing next to the pool and grounding yourself. A piece that it didn't say on it is we ground ourselves into feelings, there's feelings of emotions, sensations, and bodily reactions. We kind of think in these three terms.
Hmm.
And so I know when we're in a very emotion-filled state that it can be super helpful to feel in a physical state. This is where swimming is such a remarkable thing, right? Because this physical state around us. So even doing something as simple as rubbing your two fingertips together so slowly that you're just paying attention. You're bringing all of your attention into that kind of feeling, right? This gives us this little break, this little slow down. It's a very small, tangible thing that we can do anytime, anywhere if we need a tiny break from the other feelings that are coming in, is to just feel into our physical bodies
That's
and
great.
be present in that moment.
Yeah, because I mean, certainly, we don't always get to choose when the grief waves are going to come. And, somebody could be having to walk into a meeting at work, or they're standing in line at the store, or they're at a big family function. And so to have something kind of small that you can do like that in those moments where you would maybe otherwise start to feel panicked and we need to kind of regulate our system a little bit. Again, it kind of comes down to the small things and the things that we can try. So it's a great suggestion, Corey. Thank you so much. So I'm so glad that we had this chance to talk to you today. If anybody wanted to get in touch with you, how could they do that?
Yeah, so on social media, we're Calm Within Adult Swim, and our website is adultswimlesson.com.
Okay. All right. That's an easy one to
Well,
remember.
maybe me and my sister will check it out.
That would be great.
Well, thank you, Corey. Thank you so much for being here. And thanks to all of our listeners. We'll be back next week with our next letter of F and finding. Thanks for joining us on the Grief Ladies. Don't wait to feel better to get started. Getting started is what makes you feel better. Put this week's tool to work. If today's episode helped, share it with someone who needs it and leave us a review. We'd love to hear from you. And remember, we're here for you, your trusted grief ladies, navigating this path together.